You want to play D&D?
If you've ever tried to explain Dungeons and Dragons simply to a person who has never played a tabletop role playing game before, like me, you're probably going to lose them somewhere in between the this is the greatest game ever to why certain rules and mechanics work the way they work and why you have several different types of dice as opposed to just the regular six-sided dice that everyone is familiar with. But Deborah Ann Woll gives a masterclass on how to introduce D&D or any tabletop role playing game to somebody who's brand new. And I love it because it's uncomplicated, it is conversational, and really gets to the heart of D&D and role-playing games in general. I mean, the fact that my wife, who doesn't play role-playing games, was gushing about this video and how I should actually take notes from what Deborah Ann Woll did and how she made it completely accessible to somebody who doesn't know anything about the game or the rules speaks volumes about just how well Deborah nailed this intro. So here's some things that she did really well, and these are things that I'm definitely going to be working on myself because they're such really good tools on how to engage new players in general. So here we go. The first thing that she does is, number one, she puts the new player first.
So let's see, you've got a bow strapped to your back, a sword and a dagger at your hilt, right? So you're walking through the woods.
You see, in order to get somebody into the space of a tabletop role-playing game, sometimes we as GMs think that, oh, okay, it's about the evocative description. It's about how well I'm able to describe words. And while triggering the imagination is important, the most important thing is really spotlighting the new player and getting them into that world. And we can do that by simply focusing on you. You is such a powerful word. It directly engages a new player and brings them into the situation. Now that she has their attention, she sets them up for action. And that's the second thing that really works well.
It's dark, it's at night. Almost no moonlight is coming through. You hear a crack off in the distance. Something large stepped on a branch. What would you do?
Deborah doesn't mince words or waste time trying to create this elaborate scene. She gets them in action immediately. And again, I think the mistake that we have is that action always relates to combat, but that's not really the case. Here, action is all about putting you into a situation where you now have to make a decision. What would you do? And that's a brilliant way to engage somebody in the theater of the mind because it wraps the entire scenario in a story. When somebody tells us a story, we naturally imagine ourselves in these scenarios. And tabletop role-playing is exactly the same thing. We're pitched a scenario, as fantastic and fictional as it is, and now we're engaged with the simple words, you, given the scenario, what would you do? And the goal behind this step is to really engage the player to act, to do something. Because the last thing you want to do is to bog them down with flowery words. It's a waste of time. It's about how fast you can get them immersed in this pretend game that we all love. Now here's where the rubber meets the road. And I think what she did here was brilliant. Number 3, she explains as she goes.
How far away is the crack?
Give me a perception check. So then you roll dice and we'd see how perceptive you are.
Deborah doesn't need to expand the entire rule set or why certain things are the way they are. And this is a problem for me because when I explain something, I have a tendency to go further back into why the reasons are the way things are. But people don't need that. They just need tangible handles, what's happening, simple and effective. And Deborah does this brilliantly. She simply explains, here's what we do, here's the situation, and now we roll some dice. As simple as that. GM describes, the player reacts, and then a resolution is played out. And really, that's the nuts and bolts of any kind of tabletop role-playing system, whether you have a D20 or a D6. It's about this engagement, this back and forth, this collaborative storytelling between a game master and a player. And the last thing that she does brilliantly, and I cannot overstate this enough, she carries the conversation enough where it's fun for the both of them, but once she starts sensing the conversation shifting, she drops it and goes into the original conversation that she had with her friend. Because I know I have a tendency to go full throttle, the whole 9 yards, and really bring them into this hobby that I love. But I love how Deborah, sensing where the conversation's going, leaves it at the table and carries on with the rest of the conversation. She pivots away from tabletop role-playing and goes back to her conversation with John. And that's a people skill that I feel I need to improve on as well, because again, in a conversation, it is a lot about the other person as well. I have a tendency to focus on myself and telling about my stories, but that ends up making the conversation a one-way street. So she doesn't overwhelm her friend with nerdiness, but she has enough to get them involved in their world, even just for a few short minutes. It's inviting, it's not awkward, and it gives us a chance to share this passion of this hobby that we all love and enjoy, and we really want to get our friends involved. So it's a wonderful teaser to get somebody involved, and I'm definitely going to be using this and keeping this in mind the next time I encounter somebody who has a question about what a role-playing a game is and how it works. How about you? Given the scenario that you were introducing a new player into the genre, into the game, what would you do different? I'd love to hear in your comments below. If you haven't already, check out that video. And of course, if you're a game master and you're new to game mastering, check out the other videos I have in this channel. I've got a lot of good surprises in the pipe, and I'm really hoping to get them out sooner. Thanks for watching, Game Master. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.